Ever met a person that thinks he has all the answers, but then gets a temper tantrum if you say something that goes against what he once learned in high school? I'm talking about people that hecking love science and see Neil deGrasse Tyson as one of the greatest philosophers of our generation. The stereotype I'm talking about are typically atheists with a small touch of autism mixed with left-leaning political beliefs. I'm sure you all interacted with these people, who usually refer to themselves as skeptics. The philosophy behind the skeptic movement is to view everything through a scientific lens and only use the best data for their decisions. They don't speculate on things that has not yet been proven, because they believe that more intelligent people are already working on obtaining the answer. So why bother thinking about something the experts are already better at figuring out? This all sounds great in theory, so what is the problem? Just like how a liberal is not liberal in the classical sense, because they do not value your liberty to own guns and property, a skeptic is not actually a true skeptic. They always fall into the trap of only being skeptic towards theories that goes against the mainstream narrative. The official explanation is always accepted because some authority compiled arguments of why this is the case. And like lemmings, these arguments get repeated by the skeptics as gospel. The skeptics are thus intellectually lazy because they outsource their thinking to other people. They only spend energy on learning what the consensus arguments are, without questioning if the consensus is correct in the first place. But why am I so hard on these people? I know they mean well and just like me wants the most accurate information out there so that people can make the best decisions in their lives. It all boils down to the skeptics' misunderstanding of what science is and how the scientific process is actually conducted. And I think this paper demonstrates this phenomenon, where you have the hesitancy to inject an experimental gene therapy as a function of your level of education. Low-educated people don't understand science and instead follow their instincts. It's like the song from Insane Clown Posse. Water, fire, air and dirt. Fucking magnets, how do they work? I don't want to talk to a scientist, y'all motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed. They don't understand science. They don't care about science. They don't try to intellectualize their decisions and instead just operate from gut feeling and impulse. So when they are faced with injecting unknown substances that doesn't even make them high, they say, "Fuck that shit, no one can tell me what to do, this shit sounds unnatural." However, as the education level increases, people start to believe they understand science better, and peak gigavax happens as a person gets a master's degree. Then they have been taught about science for so many years that they are convinced that they understand it. But something very interesting happens when a person gets a PhD. Here, they have actually created scientific discoveries themselves. Then all of a sudden, their trust in science decreases. The reason for this is that in school, you get taught a caricature of science, where everything is clear and settled. But as you start to do your own experiments and see how the things you write in your papers differs from the reality in the lab, and how much debate there is regarding the validity of theories, you realize that science is way more limited than what you were led to believe in school. You also notice the intellectual dishonesty of some of your colleagues and how the whole scientific process is mostly a grift to get grant money. To make an analogy, have you ever seen those Instagram versus reality memes? Where people try to make their vacations look better than what they actually are?
My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah.
The difference between the reality in the lab and what is written in scientific papers is exactly the same thing. You forget to mention the bad parts. Just like how an influencer on vacation never showed the diarrhea they got from the food they ate, the big fight they just had with their partner, or the barbed wire and armed security guards outside of their resort. A scientist never shows all the time the experiments didn't work, or the experiments that did not align with the theories they try to prove. They also never tell you that what they do is irrelevant and will never be commercially viable, because future funding is dependent on keeping up the illusion that what they do is important. This realization that science is hard and what you see in the scientific literature is selective makes PhDs more hesitant to inject experimental gene therapies compared to people with only a master's degree. Another thing you are forced to realize when doing actual science is that you must be able to hold multiple different conflicting theories in your brain at the same time and make peace with that you may never be able to resolve which one is the correct one. This is something that skeptics absolutely cannot do because they have an emotional attachment to one specific theory. Questioning a theory should be a fun intellectual exercise, but for a skeptic it becomes an attack on their identity, which is that science is always right and questioning it is heresy. Skeptics thus become useful idiots to the establishment because they are smart enough to learn how to argue facts, but not smart enough to question whether the facts they're taught are correct in the first place.
Yes, I would take a COVID vaccine. I would spend 15 hours in a Target for a COVID vaccine. I would eat a blenderized Happy Meal. I would wax my chin. I would give up coffee. I would walk around with Cliff Barts on my feet instead of shoes for a month. So I want to get a COVID vaccine because I know it's going to be safe. And around 40% of people have gotten at least one dose. And yet, the graph of people getting vaccinated every day, it's starting to do this, which is like going higher every day. It's starting to go less and less every day. And the reason for this is largely younger people, by which I mean people under the age of 50, not getting their vaccine immediately. And finally, I've also heard some people saying, you know, I got COVID, or I think I got COVID, or I might as well just get COVID and I can get immunity that way. Immunity from getting COVID is much less effective at preventing future COVID infections than the vaccines are. So if you've had COVID, or you think you might have, or you think, I'll just get it and then I'll be immune that way, none of that works. You need a vaccine. But right now, I'm discouraged by something, and I've learned enough about it that it's, I think, worth talking about. I am discouraged by this. Now, this isn't a monolithic thing. There are multiple reasons why people haven't gotten vaccinated yet, but I have seen a lot of vaccine misinformation, and I am discouraged by it. Let's just say that there are some folks who want to create division and fear to exploit it for their own personal gain, and leave it at that.
I fucking love science, and I fucking love Charles Darwin, cause I don't think it's all the question which is told if you told that the world's 1,000 years old. There's nothing here to argue against. It's a process, not an ideology, and I fucking love science. Sometimes people ask me, of all of the centuries, which I'd pick to live life in. Well, that's pretty easy right now. If you think objectively, if you like hawk running water and memory foam beds and TV shows and cell phones and not being dead, you fucking love science. And I fucking love Carl Sagan, cause I think it's fine to look up at the sky and never ever stop wondering why. There's nothing here to argue against. It's a process, not an ideology, and I fucking love science.
So I noticed that my lymph nodes were big. I talked to my doctor. She says probably nothing. We'll send you in for an ultrasound. Got an ultrasound. Good news, bad news. One, it's cancer. It's called lymphoma. It's a cancer of the lymphatic system. This is a blood cancer, so it's a cancer of the immune cells, the lymphocytes. But the treatment is a fairly well-established system of chemotherapies, which I'm gonna start very soon. Not looking really forward to it.
Thank you guys for watching this video, and before someone asks, no, the point is not to shit on someone that just got diagnosed with cancer. I sincerely hope he gets better. But I think Hank Green is a perfect example of a person that has been taught a lot about science, but never actually done any science himself. I kinda get the feeling that he might be pushing a narrative as well, but who knows. Cancer sucks no matter why it occurs. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also follow me on Twitter.